guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Action Channel. So today we're going to live up to the name because it's Shogun time. Yes, we're gonna check out one of the biggest, the baddest, the greatest martial arts actors ever, at least in my mind. And of course that happens to be the awesome Sonny Chiba. Let's check it out. Long before Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris kicked ass, there was a guy named Sonny Chiba. And as you can see, in the world of martial arts movies, he dominated the big screen in the 1970s. So guys, if you like this kind of content, action movies, martial arts, all this good stuff, don't forget to like and subscribe. Anyway, let's move on. Legendary Sonny Chiba was born in Japan on January 22nd, 1939. Interestingly enough, his father was a military test pilot. And if you do the math, you'll realize that little Sonny was just 6 years old when World War II ended. And yes, as the history book says, 2 nuclear bombs was thrown over Japan and ended the lives of thousands of people. But at the same time, it also ended World War II. However, this video is not about something that ugly. We're still gonna talk about some serious action and martial arts stuff in movies. And as some of you guys know that have followed the channel, I love to talk about some of the old original action stars that sort of have laid the foundation for what we know today. And that leads us to Sonny Chiba. That's right, Chiba will go down in history as one of the first actors to achieve stardom through his martial arts skills. First in Japan and later to an international audience. Now during his youth he took interest in both theater and gymnastics, and he was talented enough to make it to the Japanese Olympic team until a bad back injury ended his career. While he was a university student, he picked up martial arts and earned a black belt in Kyokushin karate in 1965 at the age of 26. Later on he picked up a 4th degree in 1984. Okay, so when was the man introduced to movies and television? Well, that started in the early 1960s. Now, he wasn't just all about martial arts. He was also very inspired by Western movies such as Shane and High Noon. In fact, his first decade working as an actor, he really didn't do any martial arts stuff. He was still trying to find himself as an actor and worked in a lot of small movies here and there. Throughout the 60s, he worked primarily in crime thrillers and some science fiction stuff as well. In fact, some of his movies during this time includes Messenger of Allah, Invasion of the Neptune Men, and the first Kinji Fusaku film, Drifting Detective, Tragedy in the Red Valley. His big break, however, came in 1974 with the movie The Street Fighter, which is probably the movie he's the most known for. However, before we get to that, let's focus on what Chiba did just a few years prior. He opened his own training school for aspiring martial arts film actors and stunt performers known as JAC, Japan Action Club, in order to develop the level of martial arts technique and sequences used in Japanese film and television. Today the organization is known as Japan Action Enterprise, JAE. And now back to the man's acting career. By 1973, at the age of 34, he starred in his first martial arts film. It was called Karate Kiba, or in English I believe the title was Bodyguard Kiba. And interestingly enough, it was actually the exact same year that Bruce Lee died, the king of Kung Fu. So by now, audiences around the world, and especially in Asia, had developed a serious appetite for martial arts films. And Chiba realized, well, why not use my martial arts background in the movies? So the following year he appeared in the movie, as mentioned, The Street Fighter. And lucky for him, it was actually brought to Western audiences, but dubbed in English. Now, though there are a lot of similarities between Sonny Chiba and Bruce Lee, like pretty much the same age, martial arts background, etc., on the big screen, the characters they played were very different. Bruce Lee would normally only eliminate his enemies when he was defending his life, his friends, and his honor, whereas Sonny Chiba took a different approach, at least in the movies. Chiba played a mercenary-style street thug who would do anything for a price and take on anyone, even the Yakuza. He was aiming for a fistful of dollars for his deadly services and would engage in mortal combats for the highest bidder. Although this often clouded his judgment, the only person that the Street Fighter himself actually respects is his martial arts teacher. And as you probably can imagine, when the movie was released exactly 50 years ago, it was criticized for its excessive violence. The movie did very well and the sequel quickly followed, which was Return to the Street Fighter, also in 1974. The movies back then were shot and released pretty quickly, as you can see. And the sequel was also followed by a third Street Fighter movie in the gritty Sister Street Fighter. Later on there was a fourth and final film in the series as well. Okay, so by now Sonny Chiba had definitely established himself to the world as the next martial arts action star. And throughout the rest of the 70s, he continued with some front kicks and karate chops in several movies like The Bullet Train, Karate Warriors, Doberman Cop, Golgo 13, Assignment Kowloon, Shogun Samurai, The Fall of Akko Castle, GI Samurai, Shadow Warriors, and Samurai Reincarnation, just to mention a few. So in other words, the man kept pretty damn busy in the 1970s and 80s, and even in parts of the 90s. So I would say he had a good 20-year run where he was definitely the big man in town. Not only was he an actor, but also a stunt coordinator. So he had a pretty good understanding of the camera as well. Now in the man's many-year career, he appeared in over 125 films. As you can imagine, we cannot talk about all of them here today, so I have just picked some of the highlights. And that leads us to the next movie. The 1989 movie Shogun Shadow. I remember watching this movie as a kid and I was completely blown away. At that point we had already seen movies from canon like Bloodsport, American Ninja, and Chuck Norris had already been around for at least a decade. And yet this movie totally took me by surprise. And honestly, I think it's one of Sonny Chiba's best films ever. Actually, just talking about the film makes me want to see it again, and perhaps I should also revisit some of the Street Fighter movies that he did in the 1970s. Now, Quentin Tarantino is also a big fan of Sonny Chiba, and in the movie True Romance, Christian Slater's character goes to see all the Street Fighter movies on his birthday. And 10 years after the release of True Romance, Tarantino himself finally got to work on some of his martial arts action films. Kill Bill and the sequel, Kill Bill Part 2. And yes, of course, he wanted to work with the one and only, the greatest, Sonny Chiba himself, and cast him opposite Uma Thurman as Hattori Hanzo.
Hattori Hanzo.
Oh yeah, tensions. Actually, I always wanted Sonny Chiba to join Uma Thurman to go out and kill those crazy 88s in the end. That would have been so badass. But I guess it was Uma's movie, so there you go. 4 years later, in 2007, he finally retired from acting at the age of 68. However, you know, as they say, once an actor, always an actor. So a couple of times after that, he did appear in some TV shows. The man was married twice, from 1967 to 1994, in which he had one child, and again from 1996 to 2015, in which he had 2 children. Sonny Chiba died on August 19, 2021, at the age of 82. The official cause of death was COVID-19 complications at a hospital in Tokyo. However, instead of focusing on the man's death, I think it's much more important to celebrate his life and his lifelong career in martial arts films, spanning over 55 years. Personally, I cannot think of any other Japanese action stars on this man's level. Now that does mean that there has not been other great ones, if you know what I mean. However, Sonny Chiba deserves all the respect in the world. If you're an action film freak, then I think you should check out this man, or at least revisit some of the movies, because the man, the actor, the martial artist, the legend, deserves all the respect in the world. Because there will never be another Sonny Chiba. Alright guys, thanks for checking out and celebrating the life and the movies of the great Sonny Chiba. Now if you want to see more videos like this, action, martial arts, muscles, you name it, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next week for some more macho stuff.